אפשר להשם צדיקים יבואו גבול זה.
Have you ever had a thought when you read the Torah portion that it makes no sense to you? Did you ever want to find the inspiration and connect to the text and its profound wisdom, but it just felt completely irrelevant? That sometimes happens to me. That's okay. But then there are other times when the wisdom of the Torah feels almost uncanny in its relevance to our modern life. Although composed thousands of years ago, its teachings often capture the essence of challenges we face today with a precision that makes you pause and think, was it written just by people or the divine power? It is as these ancient stories were written not just for their original audience, but also as a guide for generations far into the future. Today in the Parashat Noah, we find a striking example of just that. It is said, "This is the line of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He was blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. But the earth became corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence." The word for violence or lawlessness in Hebrew is chet mem samech, or Hamas. That makes you wonder, isn't it? How did we end up in this situation? Why are we dealing with Hamas again? And what future lies ahead of us? This is from the Torah. When God saw how corrupt the earth was, for all flesh had corrupted its ways on earth, God said to Noah, "I have decided to put an end to all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence, Hamas, because of them. I'm about to destroy them with the earth." Quite an unsettling resolution of the problem, and also not entirely out of the realm of possibility. We're not that much afraid of the flood these days, but there is another threat looming in the back of our minds, the possibility of world war and nuclear disaster. So when we find ourselves in these terrifying circumstances, what can we learn from the Parashat Noah? First of all, I would like to know what you think about the decision of God to flood the world and eradicate every living soul from the face of the earth, except for Noah and his family. Do you think it was the right decision? Or, okay. Or do you think it was a bit too much? You don't have to answer all right now. We can talk about it at Kiddush. But my personal belief is that the actual flood never happened. I think it is a legend and a parable that comes to teach us something. It is possible that there was a great flood and a man built a boat to save his family, and he took some animals with him. And this story is not unique to our Jewish tradition. In Mesopotamian literature, there was an almost identical story about Utnapishtim, or another name Atrahasis, and it describes also a great flood and the ark and the animals, and it's very similar in many details. It even describes that the Utnapishtim had a raven that he sent out. So there are a lot of details that are the same. But there is a key difference. In the Mesopotamian stories, the reason for the flood was that the gods got tired of humanity. There were too many people, they were making a lot of noise, and they disturbed God's sleep. Very annoying. Our story and the Torah has a moral twist. Humanity turned into Hamas. They were violent and cruel, which is why God regretted the creation of humanity. If you feel too tired and burned out from watching the horrible news, and you feel that you don't want to deal with this anymore, Congratulations, you're in good company because God felt the same way. He wanted to destroy all people. But what happened? Noah came along. His name means comfort or rest. Through his righteousness, he was able to reverse the harsh decree, and humanity survived. Our sages of the blessed memories often conclude that Noah wasn't a perfect righteous person, wasn't a perfect tzaddik. He was only the best in his generation. Perhaps he would not be accounted as righteous in our generation. I'm not so sure that this is the case because our generation doesn't seem to me particularly kind or just. The problem, after all, is not just the terrorists from Hamas, but it is the reaction of the world. It is very difficult to find an unbiased opinion on the media regarding the war between Israel and Hamas. So many people came out to support Gaza without any consideration of the suffering of Israelis. And these people knowingly or unknowingly side with the terrorists, and it's very depressing and disheartening. But thankfully, the voices of reason still can be heard, even if they are in minority. And I would like to quote a scholar. His name is Huey Lee, and he is a PhD in political science from the University of California, Davis. And also, he's a comedian, which is my favorite combination. And I will quote him with some minor alterations, and I hope he doesn't mind me quoting him in this sermon. So he says as follows. He's really addressing like social media, different social, like Facebook, TikTok, and all of those, YouTube. In the last few days, he says, a lot of Middle East experts popped out. They're like, if only Israel had done this, and this, and this, there would be no war. Wow. You just unlocked a secret to peace. You should be the president of the galaxy. But if I ask these people if they also have any idea how to stop the civil war in Yemen and Syria, they're like, what are those? So it looks like their research only focuses on one specific conflict. Kind of suspicious. Let me say this. Until 1945, peace was just a distant dream. There was no such thing. Peace didn't exist in any part of the world, including the Middle East. How many times did Palestine switch hands between different caliphates and crusaders and empires? The Egyptians, the Turks, the Europeans. I bet, says Huey, these experts don't know who were the good guys. All they know is that Israel is bad. Very specific knowledge. Do you know what is the most important invention? It wasn't an iPhone. It was fixed national territories. Only after World War II did countries sit down and decide that this was it, enough. Let's freeze the borders and sanction anyone who tries to change the borders by force. But Israel and Palestine, unfortunately, could not enjoy this genius innovation because both entities did not exist until after World War II. There was no objective way to draw the line. There is no objective standard. You know, of course, that the State of Israel was created in the 1940s to prevent another genocide of the Jewish people. Was it necessary? Of course. How can you trust Christian countries to protect the Jewish citizens after everything that happened? The question was where to put the state. The borders were frozen, and there was no way to carve out an existing sovereign state. Palestine, however, used to be a part of the Ottoman Empire, which no longer existed. And by the way, it happened to be the birthplace of Judaism. So if you have a better idea where to put Israel, the Jewish state, please let me know, but I don't. And do you know what happened next? Only one day, not 1 month or 1 week, only one day after the British withdrew, 5 neighboring countries, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia, started to jointly attack Israel. Whatever reason they had, the way they tried to make a point was disastrous. Keep in mind that the Palestine was not a territory of any of those countries. They were just some concerned neighbors, and they came with tanks. If a small nation got attacked by 5 country troops simultaneously only 3 years after the Holocaust, do you think they could just chill and stay put? Militarism was not even a part of the Jewish tradition, but Israelis learned enough from history that the only way for us to survive was to become a war machine. The 1948 war basically killed the possibility of Palestinians to foster their own government. The first time Palestine had their own national government was in the 90s when Yasser Arafat was elected. But he did not hold the election after that anymore. Only after he died, a second election was held up and put Mahmoud Abbas in power. But he also stopped holding elections once in power. And similarly, Hamas hasn't held a single election since they controlled Gaza in 2007. How is it possible to negotiate with Israel if Palestine does not have a proper representative agent? How do you know if Hamas is in line with the Palestinian people? How do we know what Palestinian people even want? So when people talk about free Palestine, we need to define free. The 2 closest allies of Hamas are Iran and Syria. Those 2 countries are not free by any measure, and I don't think you want Palestine to follow their lead. This is the end of quote. Now, Hueli does not pretend to know the answer to the problem, but he believed that if there is anything even close to a solution, is that the world has to help Palestine hold regular, competitive, and peaceful elections. After a few elections and a change, to whom power belongs, smart people, hopefully, in Palestine will emerge and figure out the solution for themselves. This is the idea of Hueli, and it doesn't seem too unreasonable to me. I know. It looks like a very distant dream right now. We do not live in a perfect and just world. We live in a world of violence, of Hamas. But there is comfort in the story of Noah. He was not a perfect tzaddik. He was not a perfect righteous man, and neither any of us. I can only imagine how difficult it was for him to withstand the pressure of the cruel and mad society of his time. But he did not lose his faith in God and never stopped acting in the best way he could. He didn't give up. He entered the ark, which floated in the turbulent waters, seemingly without any control, but he survived, and he became a seed of a new generation. Our hope is not lost. We have the wisdom of the Torah and countless generations before us, and we're going to survive if we put trust in the Blessed Holy One. In the flood of lies and fake news and misinformation targeted against Israel, I was pleased to find Hueli. He gave me some comfort. It was especially nice to see a non-Jewish speaker who, despite being in the minority, tried to find some objective lens to look at this war, admitting its complexity. In the spirit of Parashat Noah, let us commit ourselves to living righteously, even when it's difficult, even when we are far from perfect. None of us is perfect, but I'm very proud of this community because in the past 2 weeks, we collected $30,000 to help Israel, and I think we all deserve a little bit of applause for that. I'm especially proud that this money are going as a direct help to people who need it, to people who suffered from the war, and to the soldiers to buy for them protective gears and equipment. And you know that this is my personal stand, and I believe that the most important help that we can provide is for soldiers, because these are the people who sacrifice their lives. They're going into the battle. They don't know if they're going to come back home, and no civilians can survive without the soldiers. So I'm very, very proud of our congregation in collecting these funds and helping soldiers and civilians. So let us hold fast to our tradition, knowing that even in the most dire circumstances, we are part of something greater than ourselves. May the Blessed Holy One, who brought peace to the waters of the flood, bring peace upon us, upon all Israel, and upon all of humanity. May we see the day when Hamas, violence, and lawlessness are replaced by love, compassion, and everlasting peace. And let us say, Amen.